Arréglate conmigo para salir a buscarme un macho aquí en Nueva York, porque ustedes saben que yo ando muy sola.
Venezuelan migrant Katiuska Martinez Guarirapa. How do you pronounce? I don't even know how the hell to pronounce that hideous name. But yeah, this Venezuelan migrant is still living the good life in New York City. She crossed the border illegally and she is a fake asylum seeker. We have exposed her many times on this channel, but I forgot to mention, or rather, I forgot to officially report her to USCIS and ICE officials. And so that's why I hereby announce that the Vega Axis channel has now officially reported her to immigration officials for crossing the border illegally into the US, for being a fake asylum seeker. I mean, she told us her asylum story, which makes no sense. And therefore, we have rightfully called her a fake asylum seeker. And not to mention the many times she made fun of Americans, immigrants, and the system. I mean, she has abused the system so many times. But I am warning you now, if you're eating or drinking, please stop. I mean, this is one of the most disgusting border crossers I've ever featured on this channel. So I am warning you now, please don't eat anymore, at least until this video is finished. For this one, I want to do things a little bit different, less talking and more showing. You know how sometimes I love to show you that contrast between what the migrants are doing versus what the news is showing us. So I have this footage of the migrant CEO. Yeah, that's right. We called her the migrant CEO, or we nicknamed her the migrant CEO because she's such a brilliant business person, right? You have to watch the previous episodes if you haven't on this individual. But nevertheless, the migrant CEO did a live stream where she was doing laundry, and boy, you got to see the amount of clothing she has. And sure, you can say, well, that's not a crime. There's nothing wrong with doing laundry. And of course, no one is saying it is, but I want you to remember that she lived in a hotel, in a taxpayer-funded hotel, her and her family, for a long time. And that's how she's able to afford this amount of clothing. We all know that she didn't cross the border illegally with that amount of luggage. She got all of that here in the US. How she got it, I can only imagine. But I for sure know she did not pay rent for a very long time. And that included breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All thanks to you, the American taxpayers. So on one side of the screen, we're going to have her live stream, and on the other, we're going to watch the updates in regards to the Supreme Court about them blocking President Trump from quickly deporting violent migrant gang members. And now we recently heard that they are now going to allow President Trump to finally end the TPS for Venezuelan and other countries. And I will give you an update on the migrant CEO at the end of this video. Let's get started.
We have some breaking news to tell you about from the United States Supreme Court. Moments ago, in a 7-2 decision, the justices blocked the Trump administration from deporting a group of Venezuelan migrants under the Alien Enemies Act. It is a complicated ruling, with the court asking a lower court to make some big decisions, but it is nonetheless a legal setback for the Trump administration, who wants to use the Alien Enemies Act to deport more migrants without standard due process. Joining us to help us understand this breaking news is MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. Charlie is with us as well.
Nicole, I should always know better than to put my hair in a ponytail on a Friday night, because that's just asking for the Supreme Court to come to us. This decision, you mentioned due process. This decision is the court saying again that people who are immigrants, even if they are undocumented immigrants, even if they are alleged members of a Venezuelan gang, are entitled to that due process. The court is refusing here to say exactly how much notice somebody who is an alleged member of Tren de Aragua is entitled to. But what they are saying is, we're going to continue our prior order that prevents the administration from taking a group of people that are being held in a detention facility in a certain area of Texas. These are the people that were previously boarded on buses that NBC News literally chased on their way up the highway to an airport and back around again. They cannot take those folks, put them on a plane to El Salvador. And the reason they can't do that is because the court wants a lower court to decide two things. How likely are the plaintiffs to succeed in their argument that the Alien Enemies Act is not fairly applied to them? What does the Alien Enemies Act mean, for example, when it talks about a predatory incursion or an invasion or a war? Has Trump fairly applied it to this set of facts? And they want the lower court to decide, are the plaintiffs likely to succeed on that? The second thing they want the appeals court to decide is how much notice these people are entitled to. And the Supreme Court is saying emphatically here, whatever that number is, 24 hours ain't enough. Go back to the drawing board and decide. And the final thing that they're saying, and this is really important, is that this injunction that they're continuing right now is going to last for some time. It's going to last until that lower court, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, not only makes its decision, but until any petition for review by the Supreme Court is disposed of. We're used to thinking about all of these emergency cases that are percolating through the court. But you and I both know in the ordinary course, it takes a long time for a case to go through the traditional appeals process. So this is a sign to the Trump administration. Not only can't you do this now, but you might be stymied in doing this to this particular group of people for months to come. And you can't go into any other court in the country where you might have detainees and allege that 24 hours notice is going to be enough to give people the due process that the court here, a 7-person majority on this court, is reasserting is imperative to give not only to citizens, not only to undocumented immigrants, but even to alleged members of Tren de Aragua.
It's crazy, right? I mean, you can say this is a bit silly, and perhaps it is, but when you remember the amount of Americans who are still struggling to pay the rent today, and yet this migrant is living carelessly at the expense of the American taxpayers, it's pretty disgusting. I may cut some parts of our live stream just to get things going here because the things she was saying, they were pointless, to say the least. But yeah, let's move on.
So, Charlie, I mean, what we have here is an instance where the Supreme Court is saying some of the same things that protesters at Chuck Grassley's town halls are saying, which is due process. And I know it's a very low bar, but we do still have today a 7-2 ruling that is in the vein of affirming due process rights in this country, even for people here illegally, as Lisa Rubin just said, even for people who are accused but not proven to be members of a gang.
That seems to be a very, very important point. Lisa explained this very, very well. I have a very, very quick question, though. Was it 7-2 or really was it 8-1? Because I'm just looking very, very quickly at it. I'm not the lawyer here, but it looks like Justice Kavanaugh wrote a concurring opinion, 7 or 8 of the Supreme Court justices that say, wait, we are not prepared to ignore due process. And that this would come down basically a week after Stephen Miller rolls out of the White House and says they are seriously considering suspending habeas corpus. And the court is certainly sending, the majority of the court, sending a very clear message that, no, we are not prepared to ignore due process rights for these migrants. So I think that the number of justices that signed on to this, the speed with which the court acted, really does send a signal that in fact people do care about due process, and that the court is going to draw a red line. They may give Donald Trump, in other cases, things that he wants. But in this case, they have been relatively consistent, I think, and at least trying to, fire these shots across the bow that, no, sorry, not on our watch. We're not going to be doing this.
Well, the Supreme Court rules in favor of an appeal made by a group of Venezuelan migrants. They asked the justices to stop their deportations under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act. The court ruled 7-2 that those migrants did not have enough time to challenge their deportation orders in court. Let's bring in former Arizona Supreme Court Judge Andrew Gould. Your first thoughts about this ruling from the Supreme Court, which is not really final, correct?
It's not. Thank you for having me on, John. There's two issues here. The first is whether the court should be involved in this decision at all. Under the Alien Enemies Act, if there is a group that is associated with a foreign government or a foreign nation, and they've either been part of an invasion or a declared war, then the president has inherent authority to deport them. Think of it this way. If at the beginning of World War II, President Roosevelt wanted to deport a group of brown shirters that were associated, a gang associated with the Nazis, would we give them a hearing? We would not, because it's a political decision, and an invasion is a political decision as well. So in my view, the court shouldn't even be involved in this. The president has inherent authority to deport them. Second, the Supreme Court now for 2 months, John, has done nothing but make no decision at all. It keeps on jumping in this case. And to date, it still hasn't ruled whether the Alien Enemies Act is constitutional. It still hasn't ruled what the procedure is. And it keeps kicking it back down to the lower courts. And nobody knows how to handle these deportation procedures.
Yeah, here is part of that punting to the lower courts, as you call it, from the ruling from the Supreme Court. They write, "We did not on April 19th and do not now address the underlying merits of the parties' claims regarding the legality of removals under the Alien Enemies Act. We recognize the significance of the government's national security interests, as well as the necessity that such interests be pursued in a manner consistent with the Constitution. In light of the foregoing, lower courts should address AEA cases expeditiously." So let's say that happens. Let's say some lower courts make some AEA rulings. Is that going to finally kick it up to the Supreme Court for a final decision?
I guess so. I served as an appellate judge and as a trial judge, and that ruling does nothing for that district court judge. I don't know what they're supposed to do with that. I guess the district court judge is on his own to figure out what the Alien Enemies Act means. They also told him to figure out what due process means. Although, to respect, John, that is their job. This is an issue the entire country is watching right now, and the United States Supreme Court should tell the country, is this constitutional and what is the procedure?
And breaking news to bring you right now, the Supreme Court giving the Trump administration the green light to terminate temporary protected status for about 350,000 Venezuelans. That means no more protection from deportation and allowing them to work legally in the U.S. Lawyers representing the government argue a lower court decision undermined the executive branch and its authority over immigration and foreign affairs, and the conservative majority on the court agreed. Our immigration reporter and producer, Armando Garcia, joining me now. So these protections, they're over. So what comes next? Can they still appeal, or are deportations coming now?
Look, that's exactly what 350,000 Venezuelans are asking themselves right at this moment. They're asking whether or not am I still here in this country legally, and perhaps most importantly for their families, am I still able to work legally in this country and provide for my family? They don't know. And we got to remember that on the way out the door, the Biden administration chose to extend TPS protections for Venezuelans. When the Trump administration came into office, they eliminated that extension. That meant suddenly that hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans who thought they were going to be protected from deportation, who thought that they were going to be able to work legally in this country until October 2026, some of them lost their status in April. Others are set to lose their status in September. Right now, I'm sure they're wondering what exactly comes next.
So you had a chance to speak with a lawyer representing TPS holders in the case. What did they tell you?
And look, this is moving on so quickly. We're actually expecting to hear from the lawyers any minute now in a press conference. I did speak with one of the main litigators representing TPS holders in this case, and here's what he said. I thought this was a very stunning quote. He said, this is the largest single action stripping any group of non-citizens of immigration status in modern U.S. history. That the Supreme Court authorized this action in a 2-paragraph order with no reasoning is truly shocking. And I think we have to remember also that not only is TPS Venezuela on the line, TPS Haiti, Cameroon, and other countries are sure to follow. So this is major implications for them. They're wondering if the Trump administration can, on a whim, abruptly end protections for Venezuelans. What does that mean for me?
Now at 5, a late ruling today from the U.S. Supreme Court means the Trump administration can end temporary protected status for some 350,000 Venezuelans living in the United States.
Sí, verdaderamente polla, tan limpia. Mira eso. Cuando te van a ver una pantaleta limpia de una mujer. Mira. Todo limpio.
I warned you she was disgusting. Now, in this next story, I want you to pay attention to this attorney because he stated, or he told many migrants not to worry if they have an asylum application, because that means they're protected. It goes to show how a lot of these attorneys are encouraging migrants to apply for asylum, even if they have a fake asylum story, because we all know most of them are fake asylum seekers, but the system is so slow right now that they can get away with it, at least for some years. But it adds up. A lot of these people can stay here under a fake asylum application. It's insane.
Now, without TPS, Venezuelans face the threat of deportation. Good evening, I'm Elliot Rodriguez.
I'm Lauren Pastrana. Thank you for joining us. CBS News Miami's Peter Dench joins us live in Doral. And Peter, you spoke to an immigration attorney about next steps for migrants?
That's right, Lauren and Elliot. You know, the Supreme Court overruled a decision by a federal judge in San Francisco who extended TPS, but an immigration attorney told us there are reasons why most Venezuelan migrants should not be alarmed.
It's been the subject of demonstrations by Venezuelan migrants fighting for temporary protected status. It allowed Venezuelans already living in the U.S. to live and work legally because their country was deemed unsafe to return to because of civil strife. Now,
Me quita el sostén. Ya, me quita el sostén para lavarlo. Blanco. Ahora se intenta destetar.
Now legal protections for 350,000 Venezuelan migrants who came here between late March of 2021 and August of 2023 have been stripped, meaning they could be deported. Willie Allen is an immigration attorney. What advice do you have for people?
Well, number one, not to be worried. The vast majority of Venezuelans who entered between March 21st and August 2023 had already filed for asylum. So if you are a Venezuelan and you had a previously filed asylum application and you had the TPS, nothing to worry about. You still have an asylum interview or an asylum court hearing, so you still have asylum. You're not in immediate deportation.
Allen says there are some concerns.
The only Venezuelan that needs to be worried is the Venezuelan that has a final deportation order because they lost their asylum or they didn't go to court, and the TPS protected them. Now that the TPS is gone, they don't have any protection. So I would imagine that's a very small group of people.
What can people do?
Well, number one, they should go back to their asylum. So now they have an asylum application, they should renew work permits under their asylum, and they should move forward and wait either for the court hearing to be rescheduled or for an asylum interview to happen.
Now, TPS for Venezuelans was originally slated to last until October of next year under a program established by the Biden administration. The Homeland Security Secretary, though, has said that the program was contrary to the national interest. We are live at Doral. Peter Dench, CBS News, Miami.
Well, here's the update on the smelly migrant CEO. She finally left the taxpayer-funded hotel in New York City, but she's still in the city. She rented a little room somewhere, and that's where she's living at right now. She's still doing her ridiculous videos and showing off to her migrant followers. But look at that. Wow, she looks like a $2 hooker. But that's what we got. She's even doing podcasts on YouTube. I'll leave the link below. Maybe you want to say hello to her and her co-host over there. I'm not sure what's going on, but these individuals, they think they're so talented because they crossed the border illegally. They abused the system. They recorded it. They got a ton of views and followers and migrant followers because Americans would never follow this stupidity. And so she thinks she's a superstar. But yeah, we'll give her some airtime so that ICE officials can remove this individual from the country. Please get her out already. Thank you for watching. Please smash the like button, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Remember, the shout outs for those of you who go the extra mile are down below. I truly appreciate you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.